This is Jake Ciely, and I'm the blown ACL that ruins your football season.
Good news, everyone! Let's get dangerous!
This is so cool!
I know!
It feels so right!
It's Jake Ciely.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Nice try, Moonman! Pretending not to know! Earth's greatest mastermind!
You just made the list!
I thought you said that was a myth.
Just because it's a myth doesn't mean it's not true.
If you all blindly follow my plan, we may have a chance!
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you Ducks. It's week 12, and hopefully you're here in the playoff hunt, and if not, just here for the fun of it. And speaking of the fun ranks over at The Athletic, did roller coasters this week, which this is one where, please, I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear the ones that I haven't written yet, and I need to get on the bucket list. I know there's a lot, so yeah, jump in on that one for sure. There's no right answer this week where I'll defend my top 10, unless we're talking 1 and 2, because those are the two best roller coasters there are. But before we get to our guest today, we're going to talk the Cardinals, the Eagles, the Falcons, the Bucks, and of course Emanuel Wilson at running back for the Packers. A few things before that, including Jaxson Dart sounds like he's going to play for the Giants. And there's a lot of questions about Jaxson Dart, especially with the Week 14 bye coming up, whether still hold, use him as the backup option, whatever it might be. And I talked about him in the column. Like, yes, I'm sure the Giants are going to tell him to run safer. I put that in quotes, like whatever terminology you want to give that. But slide a little bit more. Maybe don't go head first into the tackles. But the point I would say about that is while this might be a concern, I'm not that concerned. He actually has the second highest design rush rate for quarterbacks. Even if they pull it back to Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels level, it's still about 1 rushing attempt per game. That's design rushing he would lose. So maybe he loses 2 rushes per game. Maybe gets a few more, or a few fewer yards after the contact because he slides as he should and avoids contact. So I understand there's a little bit more risk baked in, but not enough that he wouldn't be a top 10 quarterback basically any given week outside of a really tough matchup. So I'm still on team Jaxson Dart, which I came around on. You guys know I wasn't team Jaxson Dart when he came out of college, but I've been wrong on him so far. It remains to be seen. It's only his rookie year, but of course, for fantasy, we're, again, similar to Daniel Jones, we're talking top 10 because it's not as big as a hurt that you might think. If he's out, Jameis Winston will be where he was last week, mid-upper QB2. You get the upside and you get the risk, as we know. It's the Jameis fun that we all love. Bhayshul Tuten looks like he's practicing. He should be out there. A lot of questions about him. And I don't think he's coming for the lead for Travis Etienne. Also played well in that game. It's just more so we might see like a 60-40, even 55-45 split. And it's not the end of the world for Etienne. He would go from being a fringe RB1 to more of an RB2. But Tuten could jump into the RB3 flexibility range and be able to be used with a high ceiling too, because we know his ability. And then, of course, if anything were to happen to Etienne, Tuten would be a locked-in RB2. And then lastly, we get the potential returns of the Patriots. Point being, they get the Bengals. If Kayshon Boutte comes back, he'll go right back to that wide receiver 3-4 range where high upside, high risk, you know what you get with that. And then on the Stevenson side, I can't knock TreVeyon Henderson out of the RB1 tier, mostly because we're also dealing with buys this week. But I still can't knock him out of there because some of them with bad matchup, like Genty versus the Browns and others. So it would still be a fringe RB1, but obviously added risk. Obviously, Mike Vrabel might frustrate us and go with a 50-50 split. Stevenson's an RB3. Ceiling for more. Risk to not be involved. Maybe we see the team and the Patriots just stick with Henderson, which is what we all hope. But risk all around there. And you see the rank. Stevenson is actually in there. If he is gone, then I would put Henderson right back up to about number 5 at running back because that's how good it's been. Yes, please. Okay, and as promised, it seems like I have so many nice guys as I present them on these episodes of these shows, but one of the nicest people, and I say this in a different way, the fact that I've only met within the past few years because came to Flex by a recommendation of Jay Felicio, who is a super nice guy, but Alfredo Brown, who's not only a super nice guy, super fun to hang out with, loves TVs and movies so much that I hope, because I'm going to let him tell you about everything he does fantasy football-wise and all that type of stuff, but check out Unbinged, watch it on YouTube. Great crew over there that talk and break down all the TV shows and movies I haven't watched recently, admittedly, because I'm avoiding Welcome to Derry. I'm avoiding the new movie for The Predator. So I'm avoiding things that are on my bucket list to watch that I am amped about. So without spoiling those, Alfredo Brown, and tell us everything you're doing at Football Guys and Football Wise too. But without spoiling those, which one should I be more excited about? Or is there a secret third door option that I don't know about that I might not be watching?
There is a secret third door option, which, hi, everybody, by the way. You saying that I'm one of the nicest people, don't do that. Don't set up expectations. People would be like, oh, he's super. Guys, I'm not. I'm just a very regular dude. I'm nice on the outside. But the third option, man, Pluribus. If you have not seen it, some people can't even pronounce it. I've been struggling with it, but Pluribus on Apple TV, they dropped the plus, is really, really good. It is from the show creator of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. It's Vince Gilligan. And it essentially, you've got like a very few finite amount of people left in the world that are not, well, I can't even say anything else. That's it. That's the mystery of it. I can't tell you.
I was gonna say, what's the movie from way back in like the '60s or whatever, where they take over
the invasion of the body snatchers?
There you go. We'll just leave it at that.
That's what a lot of people have given that vibe. Vince Gilligan also directed episodes from the X-Files, so similar vibes.
You know what? Sorry, I'm getting choked up over here. The funny thing is Nicole and I never watched Younger. And we're looking for something because we watch a lot of heavy shows like Tulsa King and stuff like that, and we need something that's just like you need to like re-wet your palate with like good vibrations before you go to bed, so to speak. And we never watched that. And her boss is on Pluribus and looks so different, like legitimately, yeah. And we fell down this because this is what we do. I'm the person that has IMDb basically open while I'm watching shows and movies because I'm like, I know him from somewhere. Where did I see him? What's the last thing he did? What's she doing? Right. And I was like, has she been in anything since Younger? Because I've never seen this lady everywhere. And she nails the mean boss, but still cares a little bit role. And I was like, oh, she's in Pluribus. And I pulled up the picture and I'm like, oh my God, she looked nothing like her.
Wow, dude, that's crazy. Like seeing someone on TV is just, that's nuts.
Right?
That's
all
nuts.
right. So we are talking fantasy. Football
Yes.
Guys. Everything else. You just actually finished the podcast before you came on this one. So by the way, at Alfredo A. Brown, make sure you get the A in there over on Twitter. But yeah, tell everybody your good stuff in that fashion.
Yeah, so right now over at Football Guys, we've got the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show that I host the episodes 4 times a week with Dave Kluge. We just talking about some trade targets to look for as you're getting ready for the fantasy playoffs. And we broke it down from if you're desperate, like at 3 to 4 wins, all the way up to if you pretty much have everything clinched and you're just looking for someone to have for week 17. Nice. So we kind of gave you a different broad spectrum there of trade targets. And then of course, I've got the Pretend GM podcast that we've been working on for a while here, where I bring analysts like yourself on and do a little behind the scenes look at what the fantasy analysis is like, what your perspective is like. It's not just, who are your sleepers or your trade targets. It's really getting into everything that goes into your thought process and what makes you think that way. And it's a lot of game theory stuff to just teach people, and something that you can come back and look at 5 years from now and still learn something new when you watch it. So that's been a really fun thing to do, the Pretend GM.
Yeah. Can't recommend that enough. I was on it, as Alfredo said, and that's when I tweeted that out. So for everybody out there, that if you just want that look and the insight of like people getting into the industry or what they do or what their strategies are, that's probably one of my favorite. I would say non-fantasy, even though it's fantasy, but it's like non-fantasy as what you said. It's not like starts and sits. It's a really good look. But we are talking fantasy, specifically football this week. And first off the top, as I always do, 5 main topics with my guest, and there's going to be 2 fun question, and 1 at the end. The question right now is the Cardinals as a whole. We have Jacoby Brissett coming off throwing the ball 1,000 times and completing about almost 1,000 of them. We have Trey Benson still questionable. I don't know if we need to put the milk cartons out or where Trey Benson is at this point, but we at least know that DeMercado's not playing this week. And then no Marvin Harrison and Michael Wilson just went off, and we've kind of done this dance a little bit with Michael Wilson in the past. How are you attacking? And again, this is, so Alfredo, I don't ever have somebody come on and be like, do you have him ranked RB13? Tell me. How are you feeling about Brissett as an option, the backfield of basically Bam Knight as the lead once again, and Michael Wilson's true startability this week?
Well, first of all, I probably wouldn't even give you my rankings because it's Wednesday, afternoon here.
No,
There's not
I need
really
to set
much.
it now. Right now, and lock it in and not change it for the rest of the week.
The people that ask me for rankings on like Tuesday morning, I'm like, dude, let me breathe, man. Okay, let me breathe. But yeah, so the Cardinals, it's surprising. Jacoby Brissett's actually been a top 12 quarterback in fantasy, and every start that he's had this year, he's thrown 2 touchdowns in every game. Like, he's just become a reliable guy who's got a good command of Drew Petzing's offense. He utilizes his tight end, Kyler Murray, used Trey McBride. He's there. So yeah, like I'm streaming Jacoby Brissett in a couple leagues this week because I have Justin Herbert in a lot of leagues and he's on bye. So I'm starting Jacoby Brissett and I don't have too many reservations there. I will say this with Trey Benson, we just found out about an hour ago, his 21-day practice window has opened. So that doesn't mean that he'll play this week, but the practice window is open. So we know a little bit more there. Like you mentioned, DeMercado's out. So Bam Knight, I think gives you, another, let's call it mid-level to low-end RB2 type of performance again. Like that's kind of where we're at with Bam Knight and the Cardinals offense. And Michael Wilson, I think this one's really interesting because we haven't quite seen a performance like this of his in his career, really. And we rarely ever see anyone play like this in their careers. I think we've got another good week from him. I will like to assume defenses are going to be shadowing him a bit more after seeing that he was sort of the go-to guy for Jacoby Brissett. So I think that could open things up for Greg Dortch a bit more. Michael Wilson, for me, ends up being sort of in the wide receiver 3 discussion this week as a guy that you can put in your lineups if you need to, especially with buys and injuries, but I wouldn't be banking on wide receiver 1 type production like he got last week.
Okay. I'm mostly in agreement with, actually not mostly, I pretty much am. I have Michael Wilson, just to give you a heads up, heading into your rankings. I actually didn't want to put, this is going to sound crazy because you usually say the opposite. I didn't want to put him as high as I did. I put him as a back end wide receiver 2, fringe wide receiver 3. But because of the buys and the matchups and the players I'm looking at, I'm like, I guess we have to roll with it, to your point, because Brissett's just playing out of his mind. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, it's that time, Alfredo. I feel like we do this every single year. I even said this in my waiver column. Every year, at some point, we're like, the Eagles should fire their head coach, Sirianni. They're falling apart. They can't do anything right. And then we look up 2 weeks later, and they're just steamrolling everybody, and they're the Eagles again. I feel like this is just, it's Groundhog Day. It legitimately, it's the Groundhog Day movie. We're just doing it all over again. The biggest problem, though, is if you really want to dig deep, and I'm sure you know this, is the ADOT for Hurts overall, and then A.J. Brown specifically. So I bring this all up to say it's not so much, are you worried about starting him? Because if you have Hurts, Barkley, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith, you're forced basically to start all of them, and you're happy to start most all of them, except for A.J. Brown. Are there concerns here where, like, I flipped it around and said this is a buy low opportunity because everybody's so panicked about A.J. Brown that you're getting him for basically back-end wide receiver 2 cost. People, after just 2 bad games, Hurts has been a QB top 5 everywhere up until the past 2 weeks, like average to the season. And like, I think buying low on Hurts and A.J. Brown, to your point, if you are a winning team and can absorb that risk, is the smart move to make. Am I crazy in saying that?
No, I don't think. I think the Eagles in general are a buy low. Like I just talked about a trade target for desperate teams, and I put Saquon Barkley in there as a desperate trade target. Because I mean, that's like you said.
You see who he gets in Week 17, right?
Yeah,
the Bills.
Yeah, dude, the Bills. The Bills giving up more yards to running backs than any team over the last 5 games. Like it's a beautiful matchup for him. And same thing for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. I'm looking at it right now. They got Dallas this week, Chicago next week. In 3 weeks from there, it's Las Vegas, it's Washington. There's a really great schedule for the Eagles to not only be really good for fantasy, but just as a team get back on track. And so I know, like you said, it's Groundhog Year. We do this every single year. We're by like around week 12, we're like fire Sirianni, and then all of a sudden we get to week 15. And we're like, I knew they were going to pull it out. And then you get to the Super Bowl and they're like, see Howie, he's the greatest. He made another trade, even though it's not allowed right now. I don't know. And like everyone just gets super excited for it. I'm there with you where I'm happy to buy these players low, especially, and I'll just keep hammering this home, especially Saquon, man. Like they're showing the defense is getting better. And to me, what that shows is a team that's also willing to slow things down and just play more efficient football. And that's when the Eagles are at their best, when they play efficient football. So 52 touches for him over the last 2 games, but there's been this touchdown variance. And same thing for AJ Brown, target variance. And so with games that are going to require more passing, like the Dallas matchup this week, I can see a much better road ahead for AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley and all these Eagles players.
All right. At some point, we might have to disagree. So the first fun question, and we might just because we probably haven't been to the same locations. But my fun ranks, I do them in my column every single week, as people know by now. And my list this week was suggested by my last two lists were suggested by James Palmer, and he said roller coasters because we just were talking about it before the show came up, and he's like, "Have you ever put together a list?" And I was like, "I will." The reason I've never put together a list is because I've been to about 6, and I'm talking about the big ones, 6 amusement parks. Like, I've never been to any of them in the West Coast. So I never did it because I'm like, I can't give you a conclusive list. But what I can give you is the list of ones, including the places I've gone to. So I want to know, because I'm actually asking people, I want more suggestions. What's your favorite roller coaster that you've ridden to date?
Oh, man. Okay. I feel like I went on some cool ones at Cedar Point. Have you ever been there over in Ohio?
Oh, yeah. That's 3 times. So this is also in the thing. I said I want to take Nicole there next year because she's never been to Cedar Point. So, and my number 1 on the list. Oh, I won't say it because in case you're Cedar Point, I'll give you one little thing about it. I have 3 Cedar Point rides in my top 15.
Oh, wow. Okay. I could not name you 15 roller coasters right now. All I remember is I went to Cedar Point when I was a kid and I was like terrified, and I just immediately had to overcome the fear while there and go on some other stuff. My wife has been on the coolest roller coaster in the world in Dubai, where it's like the Ferrari roller coaster that like shoots you out at 80 miles per hour. You just go straight up and straight back down. It's nuts. Yeah. It scarred her for life. So like now when we go, we live in South Florida. We live 2 hours away now from Orlando with all the theme parks, Disney and islands and all that stuff. She won't go. And I love, one of my favorites is the Velocicoaster, the Jurassic World Velocicoaster over Islands of Adventure.
I've heard that was really good.
It was surprisingly good. The way so they have this move where, like for most roller coasters, you're going full speed because you're doing the loop where you're going to go upside down. This does the same thing, but you never actually go upside down. You just go right side up, and you go up really fast and down really fast. And all you have is this little lap bar. So you have like a moment there where you're like, I think this is it. This is where I die. and then you're doing like these really fast corkscrews where you are, I want to say you're maybe 15 feet away from the water that's underneath you. So just in your mind, everything feels like you are so close to death as you're on this roller coaster, but it's so much fun.
You know what? I'm going to give you, did you ever play Roller Coaster Tycoon on the computer?
I did not. I'm fully aware of it. I never played it. I wasn't much of a PC gamer.
Okay, I want to say this, and this is what I always reference. So there's 2 roller coaster things I want to tell you real quick. We'll get back to the fancy stuff. Is 1, proof that every man in existence has some psychoticness to himself, because if anyone has ever played Roller Coaster Tycoon, I promise you, at some point they had a roller coaster that went super fast, really high, and then the track ended and they shot people off. This is like every single man who's ever played that game has done it at some point, and that just proves how psychotic we are in our brains.
Yeah, totally. I definitely had a friend who had it, and he'd be like, "Hey, come check this out," and then all you hear is "Ah!" and it's just the people just flying off.
100%. The second part is, so one of the ones, my top 2 are actually very similar because the same company owns Cedar Point and Kings Dominion. They all got bought out by Six Flags. But Steel Vengeance and Twisted Timbers, they're basically wooden steel coasters, so you can still go upside down and twist. I have never laughed so hard. I was on the one at Kings Dominion, and they replaced it. I was actually really annoyed at first because it was a Wayne's World wooden coaster, and I was like, it was really, they had the diner and everything, and they replaced it. I was so mad. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they did this, until we rode it. It's an insane ride, but the thing that I always remember is drizzling. So everybody bought those like $5 crappy poncho things, and the person in front of us, halfway through the ride, their poncho half rips. So it's flailing back and legitimately like slapping my buddy in the face the entire second half of the ride, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's just, I was hurting laughing so hard by the end of that ride because the thing's just like the whole second half of the thing. It's probably one of the best moments of my life. So shout out to Justin Bonk if you're listening. There you go. Lifelong friend. Fantasy football.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
get back to it. Another Wilson, Emanuel Wilson, taking over Josh Jacobs. Kind of more of a power guy. Not going to be a lot of uses in the passing game. So I present to say this. Bam Knight, we've done. Other running backs, we've done. Kamani Vidal's been up. He's been a roller coaster. Look at that. Perfect for today. Up, down, up, down, up, down. is there any trap potential to Emanuel Wilson? Because it looks like everybody on the planet is ranking him as an RB2 because they understand there's some risk. But still, an RB2 is suggesting you're starting him in most of your leagues, and everybody went and grabbed him. Do you feel like there's a chance that we get bit by chasing like the next guy up who just might not be good enough to be an RB2?
Yeah, I think right now, as I was looking at my first set of rankings, I've got him just outside of the top 24 running backs. I'm closer to like RB 26, 27 in that range.
Well, now you can't change it. Now you have him there.
Yeah, I'm stuck. That's
done.
it. Like, no free thinking for the rest of the week. It's over. You made my job a lot easier. Thanks, man. But yeah,
there you go.
I like this question because I think you're onto something here. I do think there is trap potential. I know that Josh Jacobs, there's like a 50-50 chance he's back, but also Packers are notoriously slow with injuries and very cautious, and they'll keep guys out. It's not a great matchup. You're going up against Minnesota, and they've kept lead running backs under 12 PPR points in each of the last 3 games, and these were good running backs. It's the Lions, it's the Ravens, and the Bears. I knew you were gonna. You know what? I knew you were gonna say it. I was gonna say it. I held myself back. I was like, "Don't do it. Don't do it."
I can't. Do you really think I would hold myself back? No way.
And now they've got this tough opponent in the Vikings, which it also coincides with Andrew Van Ginkel returning. And I think that's something we don't do enough in fantasy is like give the context of what's happening on the other side of the ball. And Andrew Van Ginkel comes back these 3 games. The Vikings have been really good at stopping running backs. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get a great game out of Emanuel Wilson. Even if Wilson starts, like I'm just worried about this Packers offense. They've been the 2nd worst offense in points per game over the last 3 weeks with Josh Jacobs. And that's like, to put this in perspective for everyone listening, that's tied with the Tennessee Titans, who we think are just an atrocious offense. They're scoring less points than the Geno Smith-led Raiders, than the Marcus Mariota-led Commanders, than the Dylan Gabriel-led Cleveland Browns. Now I guess Shedeur Sanders, Cleveland Browns. That's how bad the Packers offense has been. And you're expecting them to go up against a good defense and have a backup running back who's never really done much come out there and give you a good fantasy performance. I think that a lot of people who went out and spent a ton of fab on him in waivers might be disappointed this week.
Yeah, I think there's that associated risk. I think that range where you have them is similar to mine, and a lot of it's going to depend on what we give for practice reports. But speaking of a practice report that we don't need to worry about, no more Michael Penix for the rest of the year. 5th season-ending surgery to his career, which is just insane to think about. But we have Kirk Cousins coming back, no Drake London. So the only player I really want to ask you about real quick is Darnell Mooney. And part of it has to do with Kirk Cousins is back at quarterback, but Darnell Mooney is now what people would think just going to see a ton of volume. But Mooney, we just found out last week, I'm sure you saw the news, oh, by the way, broken collarbone in the preseason that we didn't know he was trying to play through and recover from. So Darnell Mooney, would he make your start? Like if I said you have to plug him in as your wide receiver 3, what would be your discomfort level from a scale of 1 to 10?
My discomfort, like 10 being the most uncomfortable, I'd probably
Like
be at
crawling
about
out
like
your
a,
skin.
I'd probably be at like a 7.5, 8. Like I would just
Yeah,
actually,
okay, that's
you know,
significant.
let's go higher. I'd be at like an 8.5. I'm very uncomfortable with the Falcons offense with Kirk Cousins behind the line of scrimmage, minus Drake London. I know like the way people might look at it is Drake London's taking targets away from Mooney, but he's also moving the offense, right? And opening things up for other players, right? So now all the attention's going to be on Mooney, and touchdown opportunities are not going to be as being there as often as they have been with Drake London on the field. So a bad offense with a struggling quarterback and you're missing your top receiver, I'm not excited about that. I've got Darnell Mooney like around wide receiver 40, 41 this week. So I don't have him as a wide receiver 3. And yeah, I'd be a little uncomfortable if I was forced to start him.
It sounds like very, very uncomfortable. But that is the point of this next question, the fun bonus question that you don't know about until you come on.
All right.
You have to pick one of these 3. It's a poison pill. You got to pick one. You can't pass along. You can't change the answer. I've had somebody try to do that before. It's just, you have to pick the completion of these 3 options. First one, okay. You never win a fantasy trade ever again, and you have to trade at least once in every league for the rest of your career. You never win the trade. You always have to trade at least once in the season. So at one point, you're taking it on the chin. Number 2, every time you go to a grocery store, food, drive-through, whatever it is, you always end up behind the person that has like 20 things wrong, takes forever, can't figure out the menu or what they're doing, the coupon doesn't work. You're always right behind one of those people. Number 3, Alfredo, you have to watch the Acolyte series once a month. And every time you watch it, you have to tweet out how it's the best show you've ever seen.
Gosh, man. You know what? I don't mind losing fantasy trades. I do it all the time. I'm pretty well versed at it. So you never really lose. You're just, you're too early. Behind being behind a slow person is honestly, that is one of my biggest pet peeves. It drive me insane. But I really did not like the Acolyte. Oh, you've got me in a bind. You know what? I'll say the Acolyte at least had some cool, lightsaber battles that I'll give it a pass on that. It was one of my least favorite shows I have watched in the last 3 years. It was just god awful. I'm going to say though that being stuck behind a slow person when I'm ordering food or groceries or anything drives me more insane. So yeah, I'm going to go with that one.
You're gonna wait. That's the one. Wait. No, you have to pick one that you would take. You have to
that I would take
that you would deal with.
Oh God.
So I'm assuming it's gonna be the trades at this point.
It's going to be the trades. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I feel like you can always adjust afterwards. Rewatching The Acolyte over and over is cruel and unusual punishment. Being stuck behind slow people I honestly imagine that's what hell is like. Losing a trade, at least I can I can make the trade, lose that, and be like, oh well, back to the drawing board. Go, go find someone off waivers or something. Yeah, I'll lose the trade 10 out of 10 times.
So the second one happened to me because the Chick-fil-A by us has 2 lanes. And I was like, this one's a little bit shorter. I'll go with that one. And then, of course, the person in front of them moves super quick. And I'm like, oh, look, perfect. The person in front of me ends up being like, we're sitting there for 10 minutes. Like that. Like, how many things possibly could you have not? If you've never been to Chick-fil-A, just go inside. Like, just go away. Like, how?
And that's crazy because they have the fastest drive-through line of any place. The CDC was getting advice from Chick-fil-A on how to do all the COVID stuff.
I mean, I exaggerated with the 10 minutes, but this is all you need to know. 6 cars in the other lane went before they finally finished. That's how bad it was. Like this, but yeah, no. And you know what? I always do this there's a good reason behind it. Is I just by your answer. I think this is the thing. Like, don't be afraid to lose a trade. I think too many people, I have people in my own leagues that do this. Is they're just so afraid of being like, well, what happens if this? And then what happens if I look like an idiot in 4 weeks? And it's just do you know how many trades I've lost? Yeah.
We look like an idiot every week. You make a bad start-sit decision, you're going to look like an idiot every single week. I'd rather take chances over and over and over in fantasy football and be wrong. I'm okay with that.
I've legitimately looked like an idiot 4 weeks in a row trying to predict what Vidal would do. So there you go. I cannot. Yeah. If I would have put my poison pill, it was have to get Vidal right or your life depended on it. I'd be like, I'm dead. I am dying tomorrow. There's nothing happening. All right. One last question. I got to get you out of here. Take enough of your time. The Bucs backfield. Speaking of running backs. So no idea what's going. This is another one. What the hell is going on with Bucky Irving? Similar to the Benson thing. Could be open. Could be practicing. Could be limited. Whatever it might be. But Sean Tucker just had a huge game. And it's fun. We see Monday. I'm sure you've seen the same thing, Alfredo. Monday, it's yeah, Sean Tucker taking it over. Tuesday, it's well, I want to be a contrarian. He wasn't actually that good. And there's truth to both. Is hey, some of his runs were great. Some of his runs were not so great. Rashad White, similar situation, but he still looked better than Rashad White. So if there is no Bucky Irving, is Sean Tucker an RB2 for you or better? If Bucky Irving comes back, do you expect there to be some kind of split?
So, okay, first let's do the thing if Bucky Irving comes back. He's back at his walkthroughs right now.
Right.
If Bucky Irving comes back, I do expect him to be the clear-cut starter, but I do expect the snap share to change a little bit. Prior to injury, he was at about a 75% snap share. The Bucs are a competing team. They're going to want to probably lower that a little bit. So I'd say it probably goes from 75% of the snaps to maybe 60. And you get a 60, and then the remaining 40 gets split up between Sean Tucker and Rashad White. The thing is here, if we're looking at Sean Tucker and Rashad White, they both kind of do different things. Sean Tucker's not a bad receiver, but he's not a great one. Rashad White is a good receiver, but he's not a great runner. He never really has been a great runner. Sean Tucker is a big, not a big, but I mean this, and he makes a lot of big plays. He's a playmaking runner. So right now I have my ranking set up as if Bucky Irving would play, but if Bucky is out and I have to put Sean Tucker somewhere, I'm probably putting him in the same area that I have guys like Kareem Hunt and Kenneth Gainwell and Zach Charbonnet. He's probably somewhere around that. I think I'd put him right ahead of or right near Emanuel Wilson in that area. Probably around running back 26, 27 or so, where
okay.
I think he's a good runner, but we've also seen this before where I believe it was last year, 2 years ago, where Sean Tucker had himself a massive game, and then next week it was just a dud once again. So I'm not excited about that. It's also a really tough matchup this week against the Rams. They give the second fewest points to fantasy running backs, so we'd have to know that there's just an insane amount of volume that one of these guys is getting. But I think the guy I haven't talked about so far, Rachaad White, I think it might be done. I think it's over.
It's over, except for the passing game, which, of course, if there's no Bucky, Irving, watch Rachaad White win this game in the match, as in between the two of them, merely because, of course, that's what it is. But hopefully what does get you excited, make sure you are following Alfredo if you haven't before. Make sure you're checking out Unbinged. Make sure you're checking out the Pretend GM. And then, of course, he does fantasy football stuff off on the side, that kind of. But the best stuff, and I'm going to be on Unbinged in the off season. I don't care if you're inviting me or not.
Yes, you
I
are.
am coming on.
Yes, you
I
are.
am joining this show by force. And please make sure I don't have to force you to follow Alfredo. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And yes, you are absolutely coming on Unbinged. We're going to plan out the rest of next year. We got to have you on for an episode, talk about something that's a little different than TV, or maybe something you're watching with us, man. But yeah, we'd love to have you on. Thank you for having me on this show. This was really fun for such a short bit of podcasting, man, but it was a great time.
Well, thank you. Once again, that's Alfredo Brown, a great guy, and make sure you're checking out Unbinged if you love TV and movies and all sorts of things like I do. Great group over there. Love talking and watching shows. Going to jump on with them in the off season, so it'll be a lot of fun. But before we get out of here, as I always promise, buys and sells, as likely your trade deadlines are here this week. If not this week, then definitely next week for Thanksgiving. I think is the latest we ever see them. But before, like I said, we get out of here, Rashee Rice coming off some down performances, so-so performances. Huge opportunity. As you can see in the rankings, he's still ranked top 5. I like getting Emeka Ibuka and Tez Johnson because nobody wants him with potentially Chris Godwin coming back. So Tez Johnson I've actually seen dropped, which means you can get him as a throw-in. And then Ibuka, I still think better days are coming. The Buccaneers schedule is really good for their defense. It's not the best. I mean, it's Atlanta, Carolina, and Miami, but who knows what Atlanta's going to be looking like at that point, especially now that they're going with Kirk Cousins. Carolina is decent, actually, a decent defense, but then you get the Dolphins to finish things out, although they're turning the corner. But again, not that I'm worried about the fact that if you're going to get a depressed value on Ibuka, definitely do it. Similarly, talking about the Dolphins, Jalen Waddle, a great opportunity, especially with the bye, does get the Browns in the championship game, so that's a little bit concerning. But the fact that you can get Jalen Waddle for wide receiver 2 panic price, low-end wide receiver 2, who still has top 12 ability and top 12 value, in my opinion, I would get them. And then the Eagles, talked about them in waivers. I think there's varying levels of concern. You could get Hurts for cheap. Do it. You get Barkley. Look at week 17. No, please don't play week 18. Week 17 for your championship game. It does not get much better than that. And you're going to want... Do you need to look? Do you need to know? It's the Bills. It's the Bills in Week 17 is where you get them, which is a little bit more concerning for A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, but Devonta Smith is coming up off a down game. A.J. Brown, nobody wants him at this point, just like Hurts, so buy all the Eagles. I'd sell Nico Collins, especially if he has a good game again this week, which is expected. It's not the best finishing schedule. Arizona, not some... Arizona and the Raiders are so-so, but yes, the Chargers in the championship game and the Texans team, who knows? He's actually been doing better, that being Collins with Davis Mills. Who knows if C.J. Stroud might be a downgrade for him because C.J. Stroud will spread it around more. So just, look, you're going to get top 6 or 7 wide receiver value for him. Then you move on. Similarly, the Bears, I don't know if you guys saw that, I tweeted that, of whether or not they make the playoffs at 7-3. The absolute worst schedule, and it's not the worst schedule just in the playoffs, it's the worst schedule the rest of the season, where they might win 2 games, 1 game the rest of the way. So all your Bears that you can sell, especially if Adunze has a bounce back week this week, and you can look at it 2 ways. Try to sell the fact of what he's facing this week, which is really good for the opportunity to bounce back, as I mentioned in the ranks column, but also DeAndre Swift. But then if you do have a trade deadline that's after this week, you might even be able to get better value. So good opportunity there. And then James Cook. Not a great schedule. I know he's coming off a bad game, so you might want to try to wait after this week for the Buffalo matchup to have a bounce-back game. But Buffalo, looking at their playoff schedule, not very enticing for James Cook, and closes things out with the Patriots, Browns, and Eagles, especially those final 2 games. So there you go. Buys, sells, Alfredo Brown, lots of fun, roller coasters, and so much more. And I'll be back Friday with with all the news, notes, and injuries that you need to know. Okay, goodbye now.